we want to enter into a different lesson, and this touches on Matters Budget 2024-2025. I'm joined by Stephen Mwakesi, economist, and John Nyangi, senior researcher at IPF. Gentlemen, thank you very much for making time. What a day. You guys have been paying attention to what is happening. For starters, looking at this budget, 3.992, are we still, as a country, very ambitious? And that discussion about us living within our means, is it something that is still on the table? Stephen.
Thank you for that, and good evening, Kenyans. I think what we need to be cognizant of is that no matter how we look at things, we were in a hole. There's a lot that still needs to go to be taken care of by the revenues that we get and the planning that we have to do. There are pensions to be paid. There is the debts that need to be catered for. There's so many other things that, aside from the expenditure of government per se, that have to be taken care of, and these have to be factored in. And of course, the economy has been resilient. We've seen an appreciation of the Kenyan shilling. We've seen the economy improving compared to what naysayers had said before. But still, there is need to set aside enough money to make sure that we weather the storm, the global economic storm that has been there since the time of COVID till now. So you will find the expenditure still going up, despite the fact that there have been some austerity measures being instituted by the government in terms of, and even stated by the CS, that there'll be more cuts in terms of foreign travel, more cuts in terms of expenditures. But we cannot run away from the fact that we still have a lot to take care of in terms of the debt side. And additionally, there are other demands that are cropping up. I mean, CBC has its own requirements that are pretty massive. Out of the droughts and the floods, there's a lot of money that needs to be set aside in terms of agriculture to ensure that we get back up, and there's a drought which is anticipated towards the end of the year. So there are interventions that must be done at this particular moment that cannot be pushed aside or made to wait for any longer. We are also seeing that as we're going into the year, there's a lot that needs also to be put in terms of ensuring that the industries are rejuvenated even more. So we cannot walk away and say that this budget could have been limited in scope. The population is still increasing. There are a lot of other demands that need to be done. So it's ambitious, yes, but it's a budget that is fit for the moment and the times. All we need to do is to ensure that we live within our means, in as much as the budget is expanding in scope, and make sure that we increase the revenues that we're generating. The moment Kenya gets this revenue game right, and the president is very keen on that, I'm sure we won't mind the kind of expenditures that we have anticipated and we are seeing being posited here by the CS Treasury.
All right, definitely. John, of course, the balance between the issue of recurrent and development expenditure, it seems year in, year out, because recurrent carries the day, and development is kind of chilling in a way. Talk to me about your observations, since recurrent is taking a big share, and the realities that Stephen has outlined here. Is there a day that we'll see allocations towards development expenditure sort of even reaching 50-50? Because majority of these are even changed during the supplementaries. Talk to me about that.
You know, you cannot have that. I don't think even in the near 20, 30, 40 years, you can have recurrent development being at 50-50, going at the trend that we have at the moment. Even the law just caps that are not more than, not less than 30% of the budget should go to development. So even that is from that facts that recurrent expenditure is always heavier than development. But development is the one that is supposed to create capital, so that is supposed to create jobs, then that is supposed to bring more return on the investment, because that is essentially what the investment is about. But then we have so much that we need to do. But what is the priority? We cannot do everything, because everybody wants to get a share, but then everybody again does not want to be taxed. So you find that even the government is in what we call trilemma. Here you have the citizens, they want resources. They don't want you to cut on the budget on education,
Yes.
no cut on health, no cut on transfers to the elderly and the vulnerable. But on the other side, if you want to increase taxes on bread, taxes on money transfers, taxes on motor vehicle, everybody again says, no, don't touch this. So which way then do we have to go? But essentially, we need a balance. We need a balance, and the best balance is we shouldn't borrow for recurrent. If we are able to limit our recurrent to our revenue, to taxes, then we borrow for development so that we can balance between all the borrowing that we are bringing into the economy should be directed to the development spending.
Okay.
But if you see, even the interest rate that we are paying is higher than what we have budgeted in this current, in the coming budget for interest, is higher than what we are going to spend on development. Then that will continue to shrink the economy, and they will not have enough investment into this economy going forward. We will continue to see these challenges in even creating enough jobs and creating more revenue in terms of taxes to be able to meet the government demand.
All right. Stephen, today we were talking to the cabinet secretary in his office, and if you're listening to that story, we raised a pertinent question in regards to the ramification of this aggressive move to pursue revenue, because they say we are between a rock and a hard place. Either we borrow or we find a way of raising our own revenue, and that's the route that the government has taken. But I was looking at the impact of that, and we've had this discussion touching on the Finance Bill 2024. We've spoken to manufacturers. Some of them are saying they're closing down some of their plants and whatnot. And I asked the cabinet secretary, and he confidently looked at me in my eyes and told me, we have no businesses closing down. And the moves, or rather the taxation measures that we've placed, cannot lead to businesses closing down. Is this utopia, or is it just pure optimism?
Well, I would be also cautious to mention that there are a lot of measures that, yes, have been put in place that may have some impact on some businesses. But again, look, at the end of the day, what every business, and as he said, every business must do is it must adopt and be dynamic to the changing times. Now, the pressures that are coming in from an economics perspective cannot be wished away. The government will still need to raise revenue from taxation. However, businesses need to become more efficient, more dynamic, more aggressive in terms of how they're able to raise their customer bases so that you can be able to support the kind of measures that are being put in place in Kenya. Is the government trying to also do some things to make sure that the cost of production is going lower? I think they are. You could see it from the way that they're putting enough investment in energy production. We're seeing a lot of the budget allocation going in there. So we are hoping that with time, that the cost of electricity will come down. Now, the moment the government makes sure that some of these core cost lines are taken care of and they are put to a measure which can be acceptable by industry, industry must also adopt and make sure that they put in place the measures to make sure the cost of production is competitive in the region. So it's a hard and small case, but you need to be clear as a businessman and as an investor that at the end of the day, government will still come for that money. But you need to be very dynamic in terms of how you operate your businesses. The only other thing that I could also do and I'd request is that more Kenyans and more businesses which are running away from this kind of tax net that has been put in, people need to become more formal in terms of how they do it. Because the more of these people coming into the tax bracket, you will find the government will get a bit more lenient and easier in terms of the measures that they employ. But as long as almost 60-70% of Kenyans are running away from tax or avoiding tax, you will expect this kind of draconian measures from government, because at the end of the day, they're trying as much as possible to put people in. They pay more tax. The more we get more tax, the more easier it is even for the larger business community. So let's help the government to do this.
Definitely. John, in closing, because you don't have much time, what Stephen has raised, it is either way the government will come for the revenues. And one of the questions I still raise to the CS is the issue of the Laffer curve, which a lot of economists raise. that if you pursue revenue aggressively, there is a high likelihood that you won't collect as much as if you had put your pursuit a little bit lower. So briefly, talk to me about this balancing act that Treasury needs to get right. Are they getting it right, or what do they need to change as we close up?
They aren't getting it right. Number one, you see now the revenue target of 2.9 trillion. That revenue will not be realized. With all the measures that were taken to support this current financial year budget, 10 months to the end of the financial year, they have only realized 75% of the revenue. And they're not going to go to 2.5. They're going to do 2.1, 2.2 at the best. But now they have projected to increase this by 20% to 2.9. That is not going to happen. We have an economy that is growing. That 2023 it grew by 5.6. Now projected to grow by
5.5.
5.5. Okay. You do have the economy growing at 5.5, then you want to grow the revenue by 20%.
All right.
From which economy? It's not possible. So to be realistic, go by the 2022-2023 revenue of 2.0 trillion at best, 2.2, and then work from there, not 2.9.
Gentlemen, we can always beg to be, we can differ in some of these things, but that is our time. Stephen, yes. I know you had a rebuttal, but we don't have time for that. But Stephen Mwakesi, economist, and John Nyangi, senior researcher at IPF. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time and discussing this issue of budget 2024-2025 financial year. At this particular moment, should we be taking a slightly short break? When we come back, we still have more for you. Stay tuned.